Today, we have with us our Senior VP of Mobility, David Hess, and our Senior VP of Strategic Partnerships, Wendell Nelson. And Dave recently joined us in Q4. He has a great background in mobility and IoT. He recently was Senior VP of North American Sales at Peridium prior to joining AireSpring. Now, some quick housekeeping. All your lines are muted during the presentation. We ask you to save questions till the end, but we do have a question window where you can enter your questions that come up during the presentation. We don't want you not to have a chance to ask these questions, and we'll address the writing questions first. So please, as you think of things, put it into that question window, and we promise you we'll get to it at the end. I'm going to go over the agenda very quickly. We're going to cover the following things today: the market opportunity for wireless WAN, different use cases, specific products, features, and advantages of the AireSpring solution. Then we're going to go into some amazing back office tools. I think you'll be very impressed with the back office systems that AireSpring has put together to manage the systems, the devices, the users, the usage. And then Wendell's going to cover that part. He's going to go into the available plans and options. Then we're going to talk a little bit about some future releases. But I'm going to have Mr. Hess start off with discussing the market opportunity. So Dave, if you will.
Thank you, Ellen. I appreciate the introduction, and thank you for putting everything together. Pleasure to meet everybody and get a chance to talk with our partner community. And as we get started today, we're going to look at really what is the opportunity in the wireless WAN market. It's a very exciting time as the market has been predicted by the analysts to grow in 2020 from 21.8 billion to 30.6 billion in 2025. Great growth trend and excitement to why you would want to be in that market. More further, the North American market is predicted to be the largest share of that growth over the next few years. And the company, as AireSpring, is well positioned for the marketplace. Looking at the market and what are some of the drivers for the growth, high speed and reliable connectivity is a key factor. The need for secure, efficient communication in various industries, healthcare, transportation, public safety, and many more are all things that are drivers. The adoption of IoT, as everyone sees in the world today, is another big factor, and all the different applications where connectivity and driving and managing that connectivity and failover any environment is all another added incentive for why people are looking for wireless WAN solutions. The different providers, AT&T, Verizon, we work with both of them, Vodafone, China, Mobile, and Orange are all some of the big providers in the global marketplace for these solutions. What are the managed wireless WAN use cases? The wireless WAN use cases for failover, it's primarily to back up a network from redundancy from a failover, some application or situation where you need to have a backup support, and it can be for primary or secondary type networks. Fixed locations where wireline build-outs are too costly or where the internet is needed quickly is another application. ATMs, digital signage, and kiosks. As well, temporary locations where it makes sense not to sign a long-term contract or fiber hasn't been installed. So it could be an evolution of a market where the network's not fully in place, like a pop-up retail, a convention, or construction site. Now let's look at some of the benefits that AireSpring's bringing to the marketplace in the wireless WAN. We bring a fully managed solution, which I think is a key factor. We rely on a single vendor and have a complete end-to-end service. So it makes it easy for the customer not to have to do and manage all these services, but in the same token, we give a lot of tools that we'll go into later that offer visibility to these services. Reliable managed services. AireSpring configures a highly reliable 4 and 5G wireless device. We have recently expanded into a PepLink offering. That's a key expansion for us. We feel that PepLink's one of the leaders in the market. Everyone knows who Cradlepoint is, They're at the high end, and I believe that Peplink sits right below them. So you get a little more value for the money, but it's still considered one of the top devices in the market. AireSpring provides connectivity with multiple leading network operators in the mobile side. So we have a lot of great partnerships that allow us to configure the proper solutions that we believe the marketplace looks for. And we have a great range of failover and pooled plans that we'll go over a little bit later today. High bandwidth mobile broadband plans are another key factor. So where a pooled environment isn't the proper fix and there's a high use case, we have some of the better solutions in the market for high bandwidth mobile broadband plans. And one of the more exciting ones that have really changed the marketplace a little bit is the Verizon 5G unlimited plans. They do have to be verified by an address to make sure you're in a 5G marketplace. But other than that, it's really seeing it's driving the transition of the landscape into the future where unlimited plans are going to be more or less available in the wireless WAN environment. Looking further, so we believe a differentiating factor in the market for us is going to be our platform and portal that we offer our clients. We have partnered with one of the best partners in the marketplace. Wendell will dive in a little bit deeper, but that platform is the same platform that AT&T uses to manage their network. So we're confident that the value of having a phase one, a read-only view is going to be an exciting way for our partners and our customers to look in, manage, and see how their network is operating. We have managed SIMs offering, we have plans, and all the different factors that are a part of the network solution in a single pane of glass that makes it very easy for a network manager to look and see what's going on. 24/7 monitoring, device and network connections are monitored proactively, so that's a common factor, but we've continued to make that a strong part of our value proposition. Proactive ticket innovation management and management resolution of ticketing, all key part of our managed service environment. We offer data analytics and reporting that will again allow you to really look at the trend lines and see, what are the drivers of what is going on within a given network. Another factor key is activations. We can do bulk activations, and you can manage the activations as well working with us. That is that. I will hand it over to Wendell at this point, and I'll let Wendell drive in deeper some of the back office functionality and support.
Thank you, Ellen and Dave. Certainly, as Dave talked about, we're going to jump in a little bit more into some of these management tools and reports that Dave highlighted, in the overview just before. So, Ellen, if you go to the next slide. All right, so this is our unique, value prop for AireSpring with our new wireless WAN offering is our advanced portal. So think of it as this is going to be the single pane of glass that your customers can actually manage all of their SIMs, regardless of whether the SIM's on the AT&T network or the Verizon network. The customer will have the ability to have this one single pane of glass, which is what we kind of refer to as a connectivity management platform that will allow them to manage all of their SIMs that's out there in the network. So for large multi-site customers, think of it as this will be a way where they can go into the tool, and if they choose pooled plans or any other plans that have type of overages on them, they'll be able to set up all of their SIMs within this portal. The portal will be able to give them basic alarms and notifications if someone's meeting or starting to get close to exceeding their utilization. It'll also let them change plans is going to be a part of the future enrollment. As Dave talked about, day one, it's going to be a read-only application where they'll be able to go in, see all of their SIMs. They'll be able to see if they're active, not active. They'll be able to see how much utilization is on each plan today. And if you need to consider reaching out, to AireSpring to increase the plan or decrease the plan because the utilization is not quite where you expected, all those features would be available for you in here. The other thing to think about it is it's going to have an unlimited parent-child relationship. So even if you have, a multi-site enterprise customer who has different divisions, you would also be able to set it up where, the main corporate IT contact could see all the locations, but then if there's a West Coast division that only, wanted to give ability for that West Coast team to only see their 10 or 15 stores, and then an East Coast team to see their 10 or 15 stores, you could actually set up the parent-child relationships in that manner as well. Obviously, think of it as anything that you need to know about the connectivity itself, meaning the SIM, whether it's utilization, up, down status, all of that is available to you in this portal. And as we talk about later, and we'll go into some of the plans, it's going to become really important for those people that are really wanting to try to manage their utilization and optimize the plan that they purchase so that they can make sure that they minimize their costs as much as possible. The statistics and the data that comes out of this management platform is going to allow them to do that for sure. Obviously, we talked about notifications. Right out of the gate, we'll be setting up some basic notifications will be set up just as standard queue, but then the customer will have the ability to go in and set up their own set of alarms. So if there, is a separate, if they want to set up alarms based on average utilization instead of just utilization at one location, if they wanted to, change and send the alarm to different groups of people, they'll be able to manage and make all of those changes within the portal itself. So Ellen, go ahead and go into the next one. The next slide is just a simple slide at a high level to talk about, Dave talked earlier about we're introducing now into the portfolio, the new PepLink devices is basically going to be the device that we use on prem as a part of our managed wireless WAN service. And right out of the gate, we'll be using two today right out of the gate. The PepLink Max BR1 Mini is going to be the one that's basically used with our pooled plans and will be used with many of our high utilization plans as well. Then we'll have the PepLink Max BR1 Pro 5G. This plan, this device will be used with the Verizon 5G unlimited plan that Dave talked about a little bit. Will also be used on some of the high usage AT&T plans to basically get higher throughput because it's a Cat 20 router from that perspective. So Ellen, if you move to the next slide, I wanted to introduce the PepLinks because that's kind of an introduction into the next kind of cloud portal that we're going to give you guys access to as well. So think of it as when I talked earlier that the single pane of glass was the connectivity management platform that would allow you to look at all the SIMs. The PepLink in Control platform is also a platform that's going to be made available to the customers that purchase the AireSpring Managed Wireless WAN services. And this portal will actually give you the ability to go in and look at the actual device that's on site. So if the customer wants to know more about what's happening at that specific location, like what type of throughput are they getting over that wireless SIM today? So if somebody calls in and says, hey, we think it's running slow, the IT director or anyone on that team can go into the in control device. Once again, they'll be able to see all of the devices that they have out there in their network. They'll be able to go in and look and see exactly, what type of speed throughput they're getting today. They can also see basic usage here as well, and they can look at basic troubleshooting statistics to see if this thing's been down or up, all of those things that's there. Now, remember, we're also going to have this kind of linked into our back office systems because we'll be proactively monitoring these for your customers as well. But this is also the visibility that the customer will be able to go in and look at their devices themselves and do some of their own troubleshooting and diagnostics if they want to as well. All right, with that, we'll quickly move in and talk a little bit about the plans that we have available. So the easiest way to think of it is we've got two sets of plans that we're going to launch and roll out. So the first section is what we call non-pooled plans, and then obviously we'll talk about the pooled plans later. But within the non-pooled plans, think of it as there's kind of three different plans that we've got today. There is a 5G unlimited plan. Mainly, this is today unique to the Verizon C-band network, 5G C-band network that's out there. Then we'll have some 4G, and I guess when we get into the AT&T plans, they're 4G, 5G, depending upon what's available, but call it 300 gig data bundle plan. So, much higher than the AWB plans that we sell today. These are plans that's used for high usage applications where you can get up to 300 gig. And then we have another offering, which is a unique offering for us, where we're offering a failover product where it gives you 25 gig worth of service. So I don't know if you move to the next slide, we'll get into a little bit more detail about all of the various options out there. Now, this is a pretty busy slide, so certainly, hopefully it's not too bad of an eye chart. We'll certainly get this deck out to you afterwards as well. And then all of these plans will be available for quoting as of Monday in our quote spring, and you'll be able to get a full data sheet from your channel manager, and then you will also be able to quote within quote spring itself. But at a high level, these are all the various versions of the non-pooled wireless broadband plans that we have. And as we talked about, the top one there is the 25 gig. So think of it as that's a low-end entry point for someone who really knows that they're really only going to be using this for backup services. They really are not needing, they don't believe that they need a high amount of data. So for a low entry cost price point, they'll be able to get a wireless backup at their location. And if they exceed the 25 gig, they would just pay an overage for that at $20 per 5 gig, and that's on there. And we'll talk about pricing, next week when you get all the price sheets out there. But that's the basic to that plan. Then you'll start seeing, all these various versions of the 300 gig plans. To me, the main plans that you're going to see in here and that you're going to see us sell the most is you'll see this 5G unlimited plan that's 100 by 20, and then it says or 4G 300 gig 25 by 5. Now, to try to simplify that for you, and I know it's going to create some questions, is as Dave talked about before, the Verizon 5G unlimited plan is only available where their C-band infrastructure has been turned up and is serviceable. So there are a little bit of holes in that, and there's going to have to be, we're going to have to validate the address to make sure that service is available. So what is an option is if they wanted to purchase that service today and 5G isn't available, then what it'll do is we'll go ahead and put the device out on site that will support the 5G. The site could go ahead and be turned up today as the 4G 300 gig 25 by 5. And then as soon as the Verizon 5G C-band network is available in that area, we will receive a notification from Verizon. We'll turn around, send that notification to your customer, upgrade them to the 5G, and notify them that they've now been upgraded and they're setting on the 5G unlimited plan. So that's kind of why you see it kind of listed as 5G unlimited and 4G 300 gigabit. We know right out of the gate that qualification for this is going to be a little bit difficult because we don't have the ability to API. Verizon doesn't have an API directly into their system today to say that it is or isn't available. So what we'll do is if you want to purchase this, you can reach out to the channel manager. The channel manager will be able to work with our sales support team. They can certainly purchase it no matter what, but we could then give you the heads up of, is 5G going to be available right out of the gate, or is it going to have to be turned up on the 4G 300 gig plan, initially, and then have it converted to the 5G as it becomes available. So on this chart at a high level, I think the main things you're probably going to see is if someone really wants that low end entry point to just a backup service, that 25 gig plan may work for them. If not, they're probably going to navigate to either this 5G unlimited plan that also is 4G until, if 5G is not available, or they're probably going to gravitate to one of these 300 gig plans that's either on the AT&T network or the Verizon network. And you'll see on this chart, you'll see the devices that's used for each one of these plans, who the underlying network provider is for each one of these plans, of whether or not it's AT&T or Verizon. Now, there are some other plans down towards the bottom where you can see they're just higher throughput. So they're still the same 300 gig plans from Verizon or AT&T, or it's another version of the 5G plan. It's just higher speeds where it's 200 by 30 throughput, or you'll see there's a 4G plan from AT&T at 300 gig that gives you up to 100 meg, speed. So now remember also, all of these are broadband services. Speeds are best effort. They're up to, and obviously they can be impacted somewhat with network congestion, but these are the speeds that you should reasonably expect to see on these offerings. All right, Ellen, let's move to the next slide. The next set of plans that we're going to offer are what we call our pooled plans. So think of it as the pooled plans are a perfect setup for a multi-location customer, for customers got 20, 50, 100, 200, 500 locations, and they want wireless backup at all of their locations. Then the pooled plans offer them a really unique ability to actually get a plan and backup at each location. They can put a plan on each location, but they can pool them all together so that all locations share a bundled pool allotment. So if you had 100 locations and each location signed up for the 1 gig, what you'll see is that they have 100 gig available across all locations. So if 5 locations actually had a problem and had high utilization that month, and the other 95 really didn't use anything at all, as long as overall across their 100 sites, they didn't use more than 100 gig, then it will give them the ability to where they don't pay any overage at all. So that's why these plans work really well for multi-location customers, so that they can pool all of their data together from each site and basically get in with a good entry price point, because they're going to know if I've got 100, 200 sites, not all sites are going to go down in any one given month. You're only going to have a small percentage of outages. Now, obviously, the percentage of outages that you got to account for may be different. If your primary circuits are all fiber, it's going to be less likely that you have to worry about outages, as opposed to if your primary is broadband circuits at a bunch of the locations, then you may have a little bit higher rate of failure on those broadband circuits than you would fiber circuits. So you may need to account for that, when you're allocating how big of a pool, you want to purchase. Ellen, if you move to the next slide, similar to the last one, this is just a little bit more detail about the pool plans themselves. The speeds that are available are 1 gig, 2 gig, 5, 10, 20, and 50. Obviously, not all locations need to be on the same, speed. So some could be at 1 gig, and you could put, at that 100 site example, you could put 95 of them on 1 gig, and maybe you want 5 of them on 5 gig. You can do that as well. This plan today is only available on the AT&T network. We will be adding a second provider to the pool plans, in a future release. Whether it's going to be T-Mobile or Verizon, that's still kind of a little bit up in the air, but we will be providing a second provider for these pool plans as well. But initially out of the gate, the pool plans will be on the AT&T network. With that, I'll kind of flip it back over to Dave. So Dave's going to talk about a couple of future release items that we're working on, and then we'll kind of open it up to Q&A from there.
Okay, Dave.
Okay, thank you, Wendell. So as we look forward, we have a lot of plans to continue to expand and do things that we feel will enhance our offering and bring in new products. But within the scope of the wireless WAN, some of the more near-term future expansions would be a cold standby SIM, where essentially we deploy a PEP-Link device and it would have a second SIM inside it that we could remotely activate if we needed to. Another approach to that is having an active, which is a hot standby SIM that's inside the device as well, but it's also activated at the point in time when we give it to the client. And the client then really has a dual approach to managing the network. The third approach would be getting into an active SIM bonding environment with 2 different providers. I would say 1, 2, and 3 are reasonable to think that we could have in place somewhere between near the end of Q2 and into Q3. The 4th and 5th, which is expansion into a global offering on a global type SIM solution where we could have locations for remote locations in different geographical markets, which is a global SIM, global deployment, or a global eSIM. Those probably are going to be looking more like later in the year and into probably Q1 of next year, where we'll have, I think, a global solution in place to support our multinational applications. But that's a quick overview, and we have many exciting added things that we'll be announcing that really expand off the whole mobility strategy as well as we get through the year.
Yeah, and I think the only thing I'd add there, Dave, is the new PEP-Link device that's kind of also on this slide, will be the new device that will be deployed as a part of that number 3, the active SIM bonding that is a dual radio device that will allow us to do that bonding. That's a part of the item 3 on the future release.
Great.
Okay, great. Thank you, gentlemen. That was a very good. Now we're going to have some questions. Folks, we prefer not to unmute the lines because of noise that always seems to creep in. But if you can enter your questions into the question window, that would be helpful. One real quick, Wendell, I had a request for you to repeat something you mentioned on the non-pooled plans when you were talking about how if they were in an area, they opted for the 5G, but can you go through that again? If they didn't have the 5G active in that area, then it was active, how we handle that? Can you just repeat that part?
Yeah, so basically the way that plan is set up is it's set up today as for the same price point, if you purchase that plan, we're going to put the 5G device out there, the Max Pro 5G device that we talked about from PepLink. And if 5G is not immediately available, it will turn up on the Verizon 4G 300 gig plan. 25 by 5 is the one if you buy the 5G 100 by 20 plan. If 5G 100 is 12 by 20 is not available there, it would go to the 4G 300 gig 25 by 5 is how it would get delivered out of the gate. So that's how it would be delivered initially. And then as soon as 5G is available in that area, it would automatically be upgraded. Nothing would need to change. There'll be no, SIMs won't need to change. The CPE won't need to change. Nothing would change. We would just then notify the customer that 5G's now been enabled on that device and you've now moved up to the 5G 100 by 20 plan that's unlimited, and the price wouldn't change or anything else. So that's kind of how it's done today.
Okay, that was part 2 of the question. Does the price change when it goes from the 4G? Okay, very good. Okay, another question is, let's see, does the portal show the current throughput for each of the SIMs?
When you talk about throughput, the easiest way to think about it is within the in control footprint, you can actually see the throughput better. So I would say if you're trying to validate like what type of throughput is happening at the site. So if someone's telling you that seems like it's running slow today, or I've went over to failover, but it doesn't seem like it's, we're getting good speeds. The PepLink in control portal is going to be the best portal to go look at for that throughput. But yes, you can absolutely look at the throughput that they're getting. You'll be able to see some historical data of the throughput. You'll also be able to see what they're doing, what they're realizing right now from a throughput perspective. If you were looking at just total utilization, like against that 300 gig plan or against one of the pooled plans, then the best place to get utilization is going to be over in the front end single pane of glass that we talked about, our connectivity management platform. So think about it, that's where all of the usage records are being pulled near real time from the AT&T network to tell us exactly how much utilization is going on that SIM. So utilization, the front end connectivity management portal is the best place to go. If you're looking for throughput, the best place to go is probably the in control.
Okay. Next question is, a customer signs up for 3 years, then has to move to 2 years. How much will it cost to move the equipment to the new site? Well, there's like 2 questions there. Okay, so they're changing the plan and then moving equipment.
Okay, so yeah, I thought the first part of the question was about changing terms, or was it in year 2 they needed to move the location?
I would assume that, Brenda, if you can clarify that in the question, that would be helpful. So customer signs up for 3 years, has to move after 2 years. I'm sorry,
Okay.
I read that wrong. Yes, moving location after 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to, obviously we'll work with that just like anything else today. Obviously changing the plan's not a problem whatsoever. We would just need to validate what service is going to be available at that new location. Is it a similar product or not? And we can certainly work around that where you're not going to have to pay large ETLs in that scenario. It really depends on what device, as long as you're not changing from one device to another. If you're moving from one of the 5G plans and you're trying to go down to one of the other ones, we'd have to work through all of those, but we can accommodate those changes easily, yes. Now, the other thing to mention, and I didn't before, so there's a couple things that I probably didn't mention real well on the non-pool plans, and we'll use that now, is one is that we do offer a full whereas historically you've seen us offer mostly just 2 and 3 year plans. We've heard and listened to a lot of suggestions from our partner community as well as our customers around some of our wireless offerings needed a little bit more flexibility. So what you will see in these new wireless WAN plans is you'll see a 3-year term, a 2-year term, a 1-year term. We'll also even show a 6-month term option in these new plans as well. So you'll have various options there. The other thing I wanted to highlight is with these new 300 gig plans, what you're also starting to see move around. One, the good news is with that Verizon 5G plan, we are starting to see some people offering some unlimited offerings in the wireless, where it's typically been these data caps and then you get throttled or you pay overage. So the good news is we're starting to see a trend moving towards some of these unlimited plans, and the Verizon 5G one's the first one that we have available today. But there's talks that there may be even some more unlimited plans coming up in the very near future, and we'll keep our ears to the ground for that. We'll certainly notify you if anything changes there. The other thing you'll notice is on these 300 gig plans, when it's much larger than what we've seen in some of the past, but in the past, everything's really been about throttling. Once you hit a data cap or a data threshold, it's been about throttling the service. Whereas now you're starting to see, okay, we're going to give you a product and it's 300 gig, but if you hit the 300 gig, we're not necessarily going to throttle you. We say if you still need to use it, then you can continue using it. You're just going to pay an overage rate to basically continue using it beyond the 300 gig. So that's a little bit of a change as well that you're starting to see out there in the marketplace, as opposed to just hitting a throttle, hitting a data cap and being throttled.
Okay, thank you, Wendell. I believe you mentioned this earlier, but the pricing for these plans will be in QuoteSpring on Monday, correct?
Correct. They should be available on Monday, and then you should also be able to reach out and get a data, you can get a rate sheet directly from, your channel manager as well. But yes, all that should be available on Monday.
Okay. Now, if people on the call are not familiar with QuoteSpring, please reach out to your channel manager or send an email to sales@airspring.com, and we can make sure you get registered for access to our back office portal, which is actually agentstar.net, but that's where you'll find QuoteSpring. If you haven't used it, I encourage you highly to sign up and talk to your channel manager about having to get access to that, and maybe getting a walkthrough with them, showing you how it works and what's available there.